All right. Salutations, y'all, and welcome. This is Core Office Hours number 16. We welcome you wherever you are in the world to join us in this conversation about strategy, about branding, about the business of design, about the challenges that we deal with as creatives, as agencies. Um, you know, uh, how do we move past some of our challenges? Well, that's why we're here. I, along with the lovely Mary Gribbin and Jose Caballer, are your hosts. My name is Keone Chong, and I'm excited to be here with you guys. I just want to emphasize, that this is really about an experiment in social learning. You know, the foundation of this community is not only for us to be able to share our own expertise and guidance and wisdom and knowledge, but for everyone else in the audience here. We firmly believe that within the community, we have all of the answers and solutions that we need to solve, whatever challenges we may come across. Then together we can find that solution. So, it's this premise right here. We are the system. You're not fighting the system. You are the system. Each of us together collectively creates new systems. We're always challenging the status quo, and we can always build bigger and better together. So, as always, this episode is brought to you by Core Brand Discovery Foundations. If you're interested in checking it out, you can check it out at coreismagic.com. As always, we invite you to like and subscribe. So let's talk a little bit about today's agenda. And actually, this is last week's agenda, so we're going to change it on the fly. We're going to go live here, y'all. So we're going to do our drop in, and today's theme is about...
Did I give you the wrong deck?
You might have.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, there's yeah, it's fine. You can update it on the fly.
I'm just going to call it social and authenticity.
I did update it on another deck, but that's okay.
No worries. But that's been our theme for this week. And when we talk about social and authenticity, and I want to make sure that I spell that correctly. If it'll...
Oh, you don't know. Okay.
There we go. How do we tell our most authentic stories? How can we be true to our values, and how can we express that in all the ways that a brand does, particularly in social media, which is like the primary way of broadcasting who we are and what we represent and our values and our significance, our vision for the world. But not only for ourselves, for our clients. There are some ways to do that, leveraging Core as a framework, and we're going to discuss that. But there's also some principles behind it that sit outside just general design and brand frameworks, and we'll discuss that as well. So once we get into that, we'll open up the floor to Core Q&A. So any and all questions in related to design and brand and development, we're here for you. And then, as always, we end in the upload. What was the takeaway from today's call? What is that one thing that you can take with you throughout the day? So let's dive into this, right? So we just want to remind you guys that today we just have this broadcast. On Friday, we'll have our planning session. So no design therapy on Friday. And let's drop in. So here's the drop in, guys. It's how we like to open our circle, and it's how we like to invite you into the conversation. So what I'd like to hear from you guys is name, location, what do you do, and how are you telling your stories on social media? What does that look like? Well, I'll model that for you. My name is Keone Chong. I'm located in downtown Los Angeles, broadcasting live from our headquarters. What do? Currently, I'm a cultural engineer, helping to build the Accelerator program and Systm. How am I telling my stories in social media? Well, I have to be honest with you guys. I'm not doing it very well. But I am engaging online. I am totally responding to comments and questions. I'm reaching out. I'm sparking conversations, and I'm checking in with you guys. So how am I telling stories on social media? I'm telling stories through my engagement currently. It's not the best way. to build awareness, but it is a great way to deepen relationships. And that's my drop in. I'd love to open the floor to anyone else out there. I'd love to hear how they might be telling their own stories on social media. So, y'all, the floor is open.
I'll do mine. Jose Caballer in downtown Los Angeles. Also, to answer the question of how I'm telling my story, one of the questions I've had is, what's the threshold between how you tell a story as a company or as a brand? So now telling the story of the system and of who we are and what we're doing, and coordinating that story in parallel to my own personal story, in parallel to everyone participating. And my conclusion is that it's a conversation. So it's really beginning to set the frameworks and the parameters. But that's not a part of the share. But so yeah, where I'm at is figuring out how to tell the multiple stories cohesively and have it be effective in moving the needle forward on whatever the business objectives are and the collective objectives versus individual. That's my story.
Thank you for that, Jose. I'm sure that resonated with a lot of you. We've got a few folks with their hands raised, so let's go ahead and invite them in and start with Cliff.
Hey everyone, this is Cliff Washington, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. And how I'm telling my story on social media is I'm getting a little bit more granular in terms of the conversation, for instance, on LinkedIn, and telling the story about how I've grown throughout the pandemic and more specifically the things I stopped doing that fueled my growth. And to my surprise, it was just something that I saw somebody else do, and it was impactful for me. And I thought, well, I think telling my story through that lens would be good for myself and for people that follow me on LinkedIn. And come to find out, it was like the biggest organic reach I've ever had on a particular post. I'm not saying it's about the vanity metrics or anything like that, but it was great to see what people resonate with and what people respond to. And when you get really deep into, then you get granular into what has affected you, what's affected you, and what's affected your growth, and making it a conversation, as Jose was saying, and also like LinkedIn likes to make sure you have video or pictures attached to stuff to rank it higher. But outside of all that, it was just another lesson for me to not be afraid to share and how much people resonate when you are very authentic.
That was awesome, Cliff. Thank you so much for sharing. Eric, welcome to the stage, man. We'd love to hear your stories.
Hey, thanks for the warm welcome. Appreciate it. Yeah, I am in Seattle, where it's 80 degrees, if you can believe it. And shout out to Brooklyn. I grew up in Canarsie for a brief time. So what up, Cliff? I hear you. I'm a communication strategist for medium and large tech companies, and I've spent a lot of time helping others tell their story that I almost completely forgot my own. And so I've been taking the leap this past year of leaning into LinkedIn and Instagram to do two things: provide value, but not just share platitudes and say, hey, go do this. I actually interweave my own personal journey with those pieces of advice that I've fumbled and have seen successes. And that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Eric. Super nugget right there. Dropping gems like an arthritic jeweler. Sergio, what's up, man?
What's up, Keone? Hi, everyone. I'm Sergio Ariza from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm a brand strategist mainly, but I'm dabbling into other areas like workshopping, a bit of business development. And my story with social media, or me telling my story in social media, I'm going to be honest, I'm not doing great there. I think I'm being afraid for a long time to open up and I don't know, just be authentic in social media, but I'm trying to take the lead this year. I'm very excited to hear all of your stories and your tips and tricks to be authentic and to share my story with everyone without being fear of judging or everything.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great ask. Thank you for sharing, Sergio, and thank you for your courage, man. Is Ioana, am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's Iwana.
Iwana.
There were 3 other people before me.
Well, I'm just jumping around back and forth, so
Oh, okay. I
yeah,
didn't wanna, impose on
wasn't
anyone.
necessarily a list, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm Ioana Balkan. I'm from Brașov, Transylvania, Romania,
Hmm.
and I have a small team called CAT, and we do packaging design for ethically sourced foods. And we have this catalyst idea because there's a cat in in catalyst, and also we act as like the process of catalyzation is about bonding, right? First, then it's activation, reaction, and diffusion. So that's what we want to do for people. We want to give them a voice. And I'm not telling my story. I've been working for 10 years and then I got into financial debt, which we are struggling with today too, and I'm scared. And I don't really know who I am at 30, almost 36 years old. But I do want to speak and see if I can help people find their voice, which I haven't found yet.
Well, Iwana, that was an awesome sentiment. And, you said something that I think is important to identify. And he's like, I'm 36 and I still don't know who I am. Knowing who you are is also knowing who you are not. And in time and age, there's a lot of wisdom. You're like, you know what? I may not be sure what I am, but I can be sure what I don't like and what I'm not. And so it's always progress, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Ramsey, what's up, brother?
Hey, my name's Ramsey. I live in Waco, Texas, and I work full-time for my brand strategy and development company called Brilliant. And I'm not doing super well on social media either. And I think one thing that's held me back from that is I'm in the beginning stages of stepping into doing brand strategy and all this stuff. And I've done graphic design since I was like 9 years old. But as far as brand strategy, it's like if I create content, it's like I don't want it to just be so that I can get followers and stuff like that. I really want to help people, and I want to create things that are of substance and actual value and not just add to the noise of random advice. And to be honest, I'm not sure whether I'm there yet. And so, I think that's the thing that's held me back. But I'm very open to putting myself out there and doing it, even if it's uncomfortable. And then as far as sharing my story, or what my story is, I would say with branding and all that is, I'm really interested in two things, I think. Well, one is just the potential that brand strategy and branding in general, the potential it has to influence communities and like society. And I just see it as a way to allow people to be served better. And I really love it because of that. And so I would say that's the first thing. And then the second thing is just like, man, I think so many people, they go to work and it's just a job. And I think that something that's really inspiring and motivating is when you see what your role in something, what the effect it has on other people and society and stuff. And so helping brands to understand the convictions behind why they do what they do is something I'm really passionate about. So that's some reasons that I'm drawn to branding and want to learn alongside y'all.
I love that, man. You touched on a lot of really powerful stuff. Jose, looked like you had some thoughts.
Nope, I was just excited about that share.
Yeah, I love that, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Some stuff that you said, that I definitely wanted to touch on it. And I highlighted them particularly with you mentioning about how to tell your story, and not have it just kind of disappear into the ether for it to have signal and meaning.
Yeah.
It sounds like Eric has a lot of experience in that space, and he actually referenced something in his share a little bit earlier, and I'll ask for him to elaborate a little bit later. But I do want to get to you, Sid. Sid, what's up, man?
Hey, I'm Sid. I'm a British-born Indian living in a small town in southern Ontario right now. So that's where I am, I guess, and where I'm from. I help small businesses and entrepreneurs understand and articulate what they do. In terms of sharing, I'm posting on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn pretty consistently. But in terms of sharing my story, how I ended up here, it's kind of doing it through the stories feature on Instagram, and I'm trying to get better at writing at the moment, so actually blogging. One of the issues I'm running into is there's Sid Soraya, the consultant, and then there's Effin Lazy, my business, which I'm still trying to work out the model around. So how to communicate and articulate that properly with consistency through the story is one of the challenges I'm facing right now. So that's one thing I'm trying to figure out.
Consistency through the story. Yeah. These are really great prompts. Thank you for sharing that.
This issue of person versus brand is coming up for me, and it's a really great question too. So, like, how much do I share as the consultant or as the individual person versus what I say as a company, and how do they affect each other? Because there's fear in, like, if I share too much about my personal journey, a client might see it and be like, oh no, wait, this person's cray-cray.
Exactly. With the business, it's really out to support people like me 4 years ago with the free resources and insights and knowledge. Whereas as a consultant, I need to be like, hey, I know exactly what I'm doing. That, you know, you don't need to worry about the last 4 years of me. So yeah, trying to find some consistency in that. Yeah, it's cool, but hard.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about that, and let's dive in. Jose, you had set up this.
Yeah, I set up some slides, and I just wanted to share just a brief experience, and just go through the first ones, and I'll forward you, and then you can mute yourself. The first time that I saw the process of seeing a social media team had to integrate the brand narrative and the history of the brand and transition it into it was a rebrand for everyone. So if you look at the first and the two first slides, Keone, what are you looking for? Oh, charger. Which type? Okay. I don't know how well, can you guys see that, or does it look blurry?
It's a little blurry.
It's a little blurry. Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, we'll have to leave it blurry.
You just have to make it smaller.
You can tell what it is. I mean, it's just not like HD 1080p.
Got it. Good. As long as it's enough. Historically, the posts were organically, and what I'm realizing in just reviewing the timeline for everyone is, for the Everyone brand, is that the people and the culture of the team affects both, and the strategy ends up affecting then. Like the early quotes or the early posts are all image-based, they're product, they're like lifestyle. And then if you look at the last two slides, which are like some of the most recent posts, now you can see like the objectives of like highlighting product attributes and integrating campaigns. Then after the rebrand, so the one on the right with the woman and the typography, the hand-on typography, that's a campaign. The images are all from influencers. There weren't like photo shoots per se, other than what you see in the product shoots, but it's now this mix of product shoots, brand campaigns, and influencer photos with the color palette and with the style guide and with everything a lot more dialed in. So you can definitely see the evolution of the strategies, but the insight and all I want to leave you with is that even if we'd say that the person or the people that are doing the campaign are very separate from the brand, because the brand is being guided by objectives and by design style guides and by campaigns with, you know, outcomes, because I also had to participate for almost a year in the weekly meetings for data. Like, here's how our post did last week. Here's how our posts are doing this week. Here's, you know, the variances. And then they highlighted what worked and what didn't work. And like Keone was saying, they would either go back and remove some of the things that didn't work, or just leave them and then continue posting and adding focus on the things that did work, because there were some very specific growth objectives. There were numbers that were trying to be hit in terms of just simple growth of social media. And then beginning to track the impact of how the growth is driving sales. So like direct requests or direct, you know, correlations between sales. And at the end, before we left, there was a brand tracker, which was implemented, which is basically you pay for a service that searches the web for all the mentions of your brand and like the relationships between them, like where they're coming, this Instagram post, all this adds up to a certain degree of awareness. And that's really where we're at in general. There's a very numeric part of what social media allows for companies to do, especially in programmatic advertising on Facebook and on Instagram, and marketing automation of those funnels is something that we're going to be diving into for ourselves, for the system, for the business that we're building, but also sharing it with the community and sharing our journey into understanding, learning, and implementing those things, so that hopefully that provides some value for you. And at the end of the day, to answer the question of, you know, how do you find your voice and this idea of value and authenticity, for me, the thing that I think I've done well for the last 7 years, building the school first and then building the system now, is providing a platform for people to participate and for voices to be heard outside of me. Obviously, me taking the first step and having the courage to do it and to share. And, you know, I did a post recently on Instagram, you know, about shame and regret or shame, resentment, and something else. And, you know, I questioned a little bit afterwards, like, you know, whether as a business owner, that's smart to be so vulnerable or to say or express something like that on social media. But the responses from you, you know, if you read the comments and the people where it really like helped, tell me that, yes, that's actually something that is valuable. And second, the most valuable thing I've heard when creating identities and brands and social media campaigns for clients is that their internal concerns of not having their shit together, you know, as a company, as a brand, and as people, kind of slows them down or stops them from sharing. Because what do you share, right? What's the fine line between being too oversharey or sharing the truth or sharing hyperbolic hoorah? And that's it. I mean, it's if you share authentically yourself, you'll be surprised that the clients might have the same issue as a client, even because companies are run by people, and collectively, whatever emotional state those people are in will reflect itself on their social media overall. And I don't mean like I mean in very subtle ways. Quality, consistency, thematics, all those things reflect the internal kind of process and the internal way of doing it. I'm Jose Caballer, and that was it. I'm done. Thank you very much for listening. Now we can all ask questions and share.
Keone, you're on mute.
Yeah. All right. There's a couple principles that Jose brought up that I think is really important, and I think it's important that you guys acknowledge and see, and that is in the ability to tell your stories, it's not about being perfect, it's about being honest. You know, a few years ago, there was this major shift on Instagram that moved more to lo-fi content than on high-res content. And that shift was really about this this need for authenticity, right? We at the time we were so accustomed to these. Oh, okay, there we go. No, do that. Ignore that. At the time, we were dealing with, this crazy deluge of very perfectly manicured photography and messaging. And sorry about that, guys. There was this big shift away from that. And we got back to like lo-fi, and it's because people want to see what's happening. They want to see what's happening behind the scenes. They want to see you build in public. They want to see the trials and the tribulations. We know that no brand, no story is without its pain, without its trauma, without obstacles overcome. And it's that tension, of that authenticity and knowing that someone is actually going through the path and living it in their authenticity, which allows for us to start to build these relationships with these people and these folks. Say what? It's off too? Oh, yeah. Wow, what is going on with my computer today? Yeah. So yeah, that's something that Eric touched on, and I'm definitely going to ask for him to bring that up a little bit later. But yeah, let's open up the floor to the Q&A, and let's get started. Jose, how'd you like to kick this thing off?
The question format, remember, share from the eye. Here's my experience. Here's what I'm going through. We're here to answer. And what I would like to request from those of you who are core practitioners, let's give the turn to Pape and to Cliff and to Mary and to Bobby to answer first instead of Keone and I. That's the experiment for today. Whatever core questions come up, let's have the community experts do it. Whoever wants to, but I'm pointing out people that I know are very well versed.
There were a couple right away when you guys were getting set up. There was one about incorporating video into the next core kit. Jose, that was one.
What's the question? I don't know what the question is.
Will you be adding video content to future core kits to demo how to do it?
Yes. Is that in addition to the videos that are there now?
Yeah, I'm
not just examples, but how-to videos.
Yeah, like actually break down the exercises.
Yeah, let's ask Mateo ask the questions.
The answer is yes. Keone and I have been talking about that, yeah. Like using Loom to just show, like, here's how you do it. Here's walking through a case study, talking through the nuances, similar to what we do here on core office hours, but more structured. Yeah. So that's a yes. Okay, what's next up from the early questions?
And then Tomide, I think that's how you say.
How do you translate core into execution?
Yeah.
So let's have Bobby and let's have some of the other people to just share a story. Here's a project, I do core, and this is what I do, to answer the question for Tomide. Bobby, how do you do it? How do you translate core?
All starts with a conversation. The way I do it is I break it in phases. So I do consultation, discovery, and then just try to implement what I learned from them before I start thinking a process or like a solution. We start thinking about, like, who are their clients, who are they going to be serving, if they have clients, if they want to shift the clients to a different type of clients or target a different type of clients. I'm a web strategist, so I do core a little bit different probably than a brand strategist. Trying to figure out here,
because you do it for the web. So what are the things that you do before translating? I'll give you an example and I'll model it for Tomide. I was a web, like Bobby, I primarily focus on web. The goal of doing core was to, in the same week, at the end of the week, present 3 stylescapes from our team. So we do core on Monday, and then I used the brand attributes on each of the stylescapes to test out what they would translate into. And then the customer profiles became translated into user stories, because that's how you do user experience. and the user experience or the user stories then made the screens. So for an example, if the user story is user 1 finds us on Instagram, and the value proposition on Instagram of what the words were on the Instagram post were matching their needs. For an example, you've seen those ads on Facebook. Do you have an agency? Do you want to grow your income? You know, so those two things are like specifically the need of the user. And it goes then to, here's how to grow your income. So whatever the first post that was shown in the Instagram became an artifact in the stylescape with the copy relevant to the value proposition, even without a copywriter. I just wrote straight up whatever that value proposition is. And then what would a landing page or a web page look like? And then we would put that into the stylescape. So we would basically show a sprinkle of the user story in the stylescape and then duplicate it in 3, because we didn't have to show the same. We could show the same story 3 times in different ways, like a chef. A chef says, here's this in the style of, you know, Southern cuisine, here's this. And getting the translation, one thing people always ask, how are you making decisions? If you look at how Mauro explained it and shared his brief for the designers, or even looking how I do it in a very interpretive way of also my point of view. So if you read the beginning of the core kit, there's a Medium post that I wrote on these contextual things. Your point of view, the politics of the company, all these different things that provide you a lens into how you translate. But at the end of the day, what you're interested in, what you see in the business, like in the case of everyone, it was an existing business. So you couldn't lose the attributes of or the brand, it's called brand equity, from what had been done in the past. You have to bring that forward into the new ideas, right? And merge them with your point of view, with the desires of the business and the objectives. And that mix, that mumbo jumbo, that's the strategy. Like where all of the brief is the translation is the brief. You are the alchemist, and you're making decisions as to what, but they're experiments, right? You say, here's one decision in one stylescape, here's another decision in a stylescape, here's another decision in a stylescape. Let's listen to how the client talks about them, because now they're participating. You don't have, the onus is not all on you to get the right solution. The onus is on you to give them options so that they can participate and say, I like this, and I like this. But none of the directions are like so far away that it's like another brand completely, right? They're variants of the attributes within the guidance of what you have as a goal, and you have to use your common sense. Core doesn't do it for you. Core doesn't answer the question of what should it look like. Core gives you the tools to put together the ingredients for that. And then you have to test it with your clients and see which ones work better. And then you take that feedback, and then we did one, after 3, we did one consolidated. And it looked like a remix of all 3 stylescapes with some of the primary things from one of them, for example. And then the client was super excited. And now you have to go into doing wireframe. After that, you have to, once you got an approved stylescape, you have to go into wireframes. You have to go into what does the style guide look like, colors, fonts, images, you know, for social and for all those things. And then you start doing the production work and you put a schedule together for that. How is that Tomide for you? And does that match how other people do it?
Thanks, Jose. I can kind of put a little bit of icing on top of your cake there. I think it was important what you were saying in terms of the container. That was the most important thing for me when it came to running discovery, and then also the execution. So I'm just looking at the kit right now: cultural context, situational understanding, social awareness, personal taste, point of view. So when it came to execution, a lot of times personal taste would bump up into social awareness and situational understanding of what the client or team is trying to go for, and what they're taking from their kind of existing knowledge about what they thought about the business, even though going through the process they've seen, we've dug deeper and seen more possibilities of what the brand could be. So they've accepted it, but sometimes it's a bit of a journey to letting it happen during execution. So having the stylescapes to be able to go back to, having the user profile to go back to, myself having situational understanding to not force my own personal tastes within execution, and then also at the same time being able to push the client a little bit to make them slightly uncomfortable with whatever type of solutions that you're coming up with, because I think that's partially how you're doing your job in the most honest way possible. You know, again, pushing them, but not to the point of forcing your personal taste on them.
Yeah, thank you for that, Cliff. That personal taste is a big one. I've seen it destroy projects. And you know, I think that in regard to that specific point, sometimes guys, like, the design that comes out of the process isn't something that you're necessarily fond of, but it can have tremendous impact.
Yeah.
You know, I think we as creatives, because we're so close to the aesthetic, that at times we can get distracted by the aesthetic and completely forget the fact that this is about an impact and this is a business generally, and we're designing for intent for an audience that is not ourselves. And that subjectivity is such an important core skill to have, particularly in branding and executing strategy. So yeah, Cliff, I just wanted to give you some props for highlighting that. We've got Sergio and Patricia. Patricia, would you step on into this conversation here?
Yes, so for us, because we focus on branding, I'd like to agree with Bobby on the discovery, because it will help you with the client's intentions. Because sometimes when we need core, we might get out of hand of what we're trying to land with a project. So with that, you have an idea of what projects they want. And then for us, how we translate, I don't know, with the core kit, there's an attribute clustering there that helps guide the visual execution to the style board. So for us, we focus on the brand personality, which is the voice, brand feeling, which is the feeling on the brand attributes exercise, and the impact. So that will what we do with clients. It's also help us with the execution, whether that's a photography guide, content, or branding, or the style board itself. So that's how we do it.
Awesome.
And I wanted to explain the attributes exercise, the clustering exercise. The objective was very specifically to get those 3 attributes that you needed to do one stylescape. So if you do the exercise and you look at all the 3, you can say, okay, I'll pick these 3 across it. So across, culture, voice, and impact, right? Boom, there's 3, boom, there's 3, boom, there's 3. And you test out the different ones. Like, it's almost like a little interlocking wheel. Okay, let me test these 3, let me test these 3, let me test these 3. And one of the things was, because when we were doing startups, we wanted to find what we called the wedge. And the wedge is like, what's the one thing that the client that the customer sees the minute they see any communications for the brand, right? What's the first impression, or the first impression is a good word. And because if you have too many attributes, and if you have too many, then you get a confusing kind of message. It was really to try to hone in messaging and visuals. So if the key attribute is, transformation, what does transformation mean? And how do you bring that across? And how do you start a conversation in every post with that, right? Our focus is transformation, that simple thing. Or our focus is, let's think of it as consumer packaged goods. Our focus is health, and wellness, and that always comes across first. That's what that exercise is designed for, to help you find the wedge.
Yeah. Thank you for that insight, Jose. We've got Sergio and then Eric. Sergio, ¿qué pasa?
Yeah, for me, the translation from core to execution is always different, and it depends on the project. Sometimes we use core for branding and graphic design projects, but I use core for, I don't know, Kickstarter campaigns or communication strategies. So the translation or the framework that I use for translation is very different. With Patricia on the Better Client project, we used concept mapping, mood boards, and then style boards to hone in the graphic design translation. But for example, with a communication strategy project that I worked on last year, I used, after doing all the core exercises, I used an improvised exercise based on Simon Sinek Golden Circle concept. So we use that, and then we mix it up with some narrative construction exercises. And that helped us to take the ingredients that we get from core and translate it into the practical application that we're looking for. So it depends a lot on what you're doing with core. Because when you get out of the graphic design realm, honestly, you can just do the translation with a lot of exercises, kits, and canvases that you can find online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you bring in other exercise and you're adding other frameworks. Whenever I've always thought about the translation exercise, I never used to think about what deliverables that I was bringing to the table or that I could potentially offer. I would always think about what was the best solution for this client, regardless of resource. And my mind being set in that space helped me understand how we could push to get this client towards that solution. Sometimes it would be things that we could do. It might be out of our wheelhouse, but we would take it on to try to push the client into that space based on what I thought was the best solution for them. But that also gave me the opportunity to expand the way that we could provide value to this client by bringing in other vendors that might provide ancillary services that would support the work that we're trying to do, whether it might be social media, or maybe it's an animation team because we need to build this animatic because they're launching some product and they need to have some sort of a teaser. Stuff that wasn't in our wheelhouse, we would step out all the time and take on, because in my experience, and this is a part of your maturity in the space and you understanding the business and how some of the businesses in that space have found success. Knowing those things historically, I could say, okay, these are the kinds of campaigns or things that collectively could really push this brand towards the success that it's looking for. But that's my 2 cents. Eric, you're up next, brother. What's up?
Bear with me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Listen, I want to hit on 2 things, at least with the execution. And Jose, you hit on transformation. And I've always viewed the work that all of us do as change agents. And that we're coming in and we're shaking it up. But I never presumed to ever have a solution. And the most powerful thing that I've learned from core, Jose, the one thing that all my clients love is when you ask them, what do you expect to get out of this? Not to degrade all of the other activities, but I found that one to be the most powerful in terms of execution. So you do that once, and then what I found is I do check-ins. How are you feeling? Have I not made the process clear? Do you want to push back? I give everybody the opportunity to tell me I'm doing it wrong, and I'm okay with that. Because as my old mentor said, you're only there to take off their watch and show them what time it is. They already have the watch. You're just giving them a different perspective. So Jose, thank you, sir.
Dropping jewels. Good Lord. Eric, thank you so much, man. Powerful.
That right there, that's it. It's like, it's a conversation that you're volleying back and forth with your client and guiding them through it. How am I doing? Thank you. Like, just that facilitative approach and not taking the pressure fully on. I love that watch analogy. They got the watch. Your job is not to give them the watch. They got the watch. And I say this a lot to my clients, your business better than I do. I'm just here to get you to move your ideas forward. You're there just to give them confidence. Core is just there to reflect to them, here's what it, you know, who you are. And you're clear, got it. Okay, now we're moving forward with confidence. You can do, as a designer, all of the execution without doing the strategy, without doing, you know, that early discovery phase, and just show them 3 directions, and they're gonna be like, and you notice how they have this fear and hesitation because they didn't participate. How did you come up with those ideas? Like, what was your process? What was your thinking? So the minute that you include them in strategy, and this dovetails into the question, how do you coax, which coaxing is a funny word. How do you convince, and this is open for everyone here, especially the experts, your clients to take you on as that role? What Eric Moore said, you know, I'm just a designer. I just do your logo and I just do your stuff. How do I convince you, Mr. Client, to let me be involved in the strategy? That's a really big part of starting this early. So I'd love to hear some stories from people. How do they sell it? How do they convince you? How do you switch from being an order taker to saying, I'm going to drive the boat. I'm driving the strategy. I'm driving the direction and the transformation of your business. And I don't know what direction I'm doing it in, but are you willing to come along with me? It's the request that you're making of the client. How do you guys do it? Yeah, I'm the captain now. That's this is your captain speaking, motherfuckers.
So yeah, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna bring in Iwana, and then Pape, Sergio, and then Ode.
Yeah, thank you. I had my first crack at user profile and empathy chart. I viewed, I don't know if I'm doing this wrong, or the empathy chart felt like a general user, like a mix of all the users and one for one user profile. And it was weird that I couldn't bring out that empathy in my practice partner, basically, because I don't think he ever really took the time to really understand the clients. So how do you go about like nourishing that empathy and helping people put themselves in the shoes of their clients, or because it always feels like it's an ideal client you want, a mix of what you had in the past and stories you may have heard from other people that might be doing something similar to you?
You know, that's a great question. You know, in the first meeting document that I share with you guys, one of the things that I have is, in that particular sense, I think it's important to identify what is speculative and what is data, right? What are the things that you were just making assumptions based on, and then what are the things that you actually have numbers and data that you can validate against? You know, the key is always, and this is going to be this is the constant challenge with clients that I've experienced, is the challenge between objectivity and subjectivity, right? Do they really understand it, and are they looking at it from an objective perspective, or are they looking at it from their own point of view? It's why tools like Stylescapes are so important, because you force, you know, your client to really step out of their shoes and step into somebody else's shoes and think about context. But that's just my experience. Let's open up the floor. Would anyone else like to share?
Can I say
What?
something?
Sure can.
Okay, just to kind of add on that, like especially with brand new businesses or startups, a lot of their demographics is going to be based on speculative. And so I often emphasize that this is just an initial go through, and it can change, and you should update your customer profiles as you get to know them better, as you develop it. I just did core last week for the second time for the same client. We did it last year, a year ago, and we reviewed the profiles, and I asked them, do these feel accurate now? And back then it was aspirational. The characteristics were very aspirational, but we found that we've really found those people. But one of the demographics, you know, came up, and they said, this seems kind of like an outlier. It doesn't really fit in with us now. So we took that opportunity to say, okay, well, like, how can we change this? And then should we just create a completely new profile from there? But I just think that, you know, as long as you're emphasizing that this changes with the business, it's not like one and done, then I think that gets them in the right mindset, even if it's aspirational.
Yeah. You know, and I want to highlight something that Cassie does that is a super pro tip for those of you out there that are brand strategists and wondering how you can provide reoccurring value to your client and make reoccurring pay. With core, I always recommend to my client that this is something that should be reviewed at a minimum annually. Once you've got a year of sales and revenue underneath your belt, I always suggest to my clients that we go back and we do another core session, because every time we get additional data and we feed that into our strategy, guess what happens? Our impact becomes tighter. We can increase the value, and it allows for you to build a relationship with the client. The best clients are the ones that you've known for years, where you have personal relationships, where you really understand the business, where you figured out the nuances. That takes time. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. Ade, what's up?
Hey, Keone, how are you?
Great, man. Great. Great to have you with us.
I'm digging the FM voice, bro. That's something I'll try to aspire to.
Well, I just moved to Venice and I've been sleeping with the window open a lot. I wake up in the morning, I'm just Barry White.
I love it. My question to the group is, first of all, I just wanted to share just so grateful for Core and other frameworks out there, but Core is my first, and I've already done it with a friend who's willing to go through the process, and that was really good. And I'm trying to close that one up, and today I'm excited to share my first ever paying branding client. I'm going to meet with them, and thank you. Very grateful, everyone. And going to meet with them for my first meeting today. But my big question that I've been trying to get answered is what does the final document or documents look like, summarizing the all your observations and conclusions and recommendations. I just wanted to get an idea, maybe even get pointed to some resources, like an outline to, I can kind of deconstruct, but I'd rather look at something that might have been done. Doesn't have to be real, but something to refer to, so that I have some kind of guidance on that. So
beautiful.
Complete.
Are you in the Facebook Clubhouse?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Adi. That's such a really good question, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mauricio on our Facebook group, if you're in there, can you link out it to these sample briefs, and then anybody else who wants to share one with him from the community,
awesome,
so that he has a concrete way of looking at it. I'll talk about minimum and maximum because I'm a very lazy brief maker. At a real minimum, here's what we heard, right? It's just basically the core templates, that you have, like this. These are your brand attributes, and you're just recapping it. At a maximum for that presentation, you're also presenting some references and examples of brands that they like and brands that they don't like, so that they say, this is what we heard from you. You like these, you don't like these. And you'll see those in the example. And you can make it visual, or you can just have a list of the things, but visual is always good. At a real maximum, if you see it's episode number 10 of Core Office Hours. If you watch that one, Mauro in Mexico showed his core brief for a real client, which additional exercises, and you'll get a real concrete way of how someone did it. And it's actually a really good looking, really on point version of presenting core that mixes Keone's style, it mixes my style, and Jeff, another friend from New York, who's not a core practitioner, but he's a master strategist. So when you see that, you're like, oh, it's not just core. It's like he was looking at different views to present to the client to help them make decisions. And he talks about how he helped the client make decisions on number 10.
Wonderful.
So,
So number 10. And what was his name?
Mauro, and the project is called Corvus.
Mauro.
Yeah.
Is that a thingy on the core briefs? Right. No, because I just tagged you.
No, Mauro's is not in the core
Facebook.
brief, and we'll have it in the accelerator. We asked him for us to be able to
gotcha.
share it inside the accelerator.
Yeah.
But the one in the Facebook groups is some of mine, and then some of Keone's.
So I'm totally ignorant here. Where do I find episode 10?
You'll see a link in the chat. Mauricio will put the
okay, excellent. Okay, I'll look for that. Thank you. Awesome.
And Ade, Sergio said reach out to him. So when you
Okay.
just
All right.
connect.
I'll do that.
You got it.
Super.
The community is the gold here. Come for the booty, stay for the love. And by booty, I mean bounty, like in pirate terms. Terrence is like,
sure.
Yeah, thanks
Sorry,
for clarifying.
come for the bounty. Come for the bounty, stay for the love. Wrong club.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Got it. Yeah. Stacy, you've got your hand raised. What's up, Stacy?
Hi, Keone. Thank you so much for holding this session today, and thanks for the core workshops. It's really transformed my business, and I think my clients as well. So I could probably speak for everyone in saying thank you for the content. What I wanted to just discuss briefly is, when dealing with business to business groups, they often have a hard time sort of articulating their clients' challenges and in a variety of ways outside of just one type of customer profile. So I'd love to hear how you have all been able to kind of pull more out of your clients to get them to open up about what are those specific challenges and what makes them unique and how do you reach them?
Yeah, that's a very complex question, but I think we can address that in the community. Before I dive into it, I'd like to open up the floor.
Let's have people share. I'm already chomping at the bit, but I'm gonna.
Is it okay if we ask just to rephrase the question, please?
Yeah, you can clarify and ask questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the best way to get your business to business focused clients to open up about their customer profiles to make it a more engaging and productive conversation during the core workshop?
It's about, is it, or I'm going to try to read the question back, especially with business to business where they see the customers as abstractions because it's, a company that I'm selling to. How do you get people really opened up and sharing and understanding that? And I, the user buyer strategy, saboteurs from, Otame uses B2B profiles from Strategizer, the user, the buyer, the saboteurs. Super good.
Strategizer. Okay.
I see. That makes sense. Well, one quick tip that I've adopted, not so much within the core sphere, but I just ask them to share their fears, their trepidations, and ask, is there a need? Being clear between a demand and a need. What is your need? Because a demand feels very, hey, give me this stuff. I know best. Rather than just what's the need here? Why are you being so hesitant? And I'm done speaking.
I think one of the ways I've tried to sort of get that information out of them is that, at the end of the day, we're all human beings buying from each other. So, there's a person on the other end of that wants to make sure their job is secure, or they want to feel like the hero in their company for using your service or product. And how do you make sure they do that? And so some of the challenges that I've had is working with groups that have been sort of merging together 3 different companies, and they're all talking about the same customer. They have one customer profile. How do they differentiate themselves? So it's the way I've tried to get around that is to talk about like, who are your customers now? And then who do you want them to be? What's that aspirational view? And I think that's what Jose sort of got to in some of the core workshops as well.
I can share a very specific scenario of how I had to deal with it, and I'll give social cultural context. These are 98% male. There was a small percentage of women in the team. It was a technology team for a blockchain consultancy, or it was a blockchain business. It had more than just, it had platform and some other things. So it's a lot of like financial and sales and technical people in the group, right? And we were trying to create profiles for their customers. So what we ended up with, what I drove them towards was, because I understood the sales cycle inside technology, whether it was SaaS, meaning product, or whether it was services, you're selling to multiple people inside an organization. And I said to them, okay, instead of thinking, let's think first organization, what's the company? Then second, who are the buyers and who are the decision makers? And I love the saboteurs part, like who's going to be like, nah. And some people could be the buyer and the saboteur at the same time. So the scenario that we painted was, you're selling to a technical manager, to like a director of, who has to coordinate with their VP, like the CTO or like a C-level person. But the person who's signing the purchase order is the CEO. So then you have three different people with very different interests. The manager, the person that is gonna first research the solution, is afraid of losing their job. They don't wanna mess up. So they're showing them multiple options. So we said, they're basically assessing you and comparing you to your competitors. So that's one, like how do you, and one solution from that is showing a comparison grid, you know, our product features versus, you know, the other 2-3 competitors that you have in the market. Then having an easy comparison download that they could share with their VP, you know, because their VP wants the options, and then they're going to have an opinion based on peerage, which is who has used your solution that I know as a company and I respect. Oh, so, you know, as used by Dropbox and, you know, these companies, great. So the logo grid will be important for the VP when he's looking on the website to determine a solution. Then the final one was the CEO. He's going to sign off on the expense. He's looking for risk mitigation. So he wants a testimonial and a quote from another CEO. He wants validation that, you know, I'm happy with this solution. And then that means that the CEO of that company sanctioned the solution all the way down to his CTO or VP of technology and whoever the team members are who are implementing the solution. So each layer had very different needs. You know, one need, for example, the third layer was, how easy is it going to be to work with you and integrate your solution into our ecosystem? Are you cool? Like, do you know what you're talking about, right? So that's a very technical and personality kind of thing. So that needed to come across, and, you know, support numbers and, you know, FAQs, and we have a wiki about our solution. Like, it'll be easy. And we have videos on YouTube. It'll be easy for us to implement your solution. So that's the third one. The VP doesn't care because he's not executing against it. Mm-hmm. He just wants to make sure that it's the right solution, and that people like him are using it. And then the CEO just wants one final validation, and he might not ever go to the website. He wants that quote to be the beginning of the deck, you know, or like here's the case study, here's what we chose. There's a big quote from the CEO of another company, and that's all he wants. He's going to see the quote, read it, look at the solution, look at his VP or his CTO and say, is this going to work and you're not going to mess it up? Great, do it. That's going to be the conversation. So that's the B2B kind of like how I drove that. How I drove it in the session was by modeling it and saying it on the wall, like, hey guys, you're selling a solution and here are the 3 people that are going to be in the process, because I knew it from before, similar to the strategizer framework. You know what the archetypes are and you just put them out front.
That makes total sense. So all the decision makers.
all the decision makers in the company, and you outline them, you give some attributes, you give some needs, and they're like, oh yeah, you're totally right. Okay, let's go into it. Now you got their attention.
Yeah, love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'll share an experience that I had. And this was very early on in my branding career. I wasn't really that sophisticated with Strategizer or other frameworks. I knew Core, and that was basically it. And the company that I was working for was a sound design company. They're called Formosa Group. They are the largest sound design company in Hollywood right now. And they have several different divisions. They have a video game and immersive audio division. So they do sound design for everything from Call of Duty to Halo. Like, quite literally, the dude that designed the sound experience for Halo is their head of that division. They have their features department where they do all the sound for feature films. So, Zack Snyder's, Justice League, for example. Those are the kinds of clients that they have. But they also do commercials. So they'll work with Apple and Nike, and they'll do commercials and things of that nature. So multiple divisions. And when I had started with the company, they had one singular division, and it was focused on the video game industry. And when I came in and I was tasked with doing branding, when we moved into the web development component of it, one of my primary questions was, how does your sales process look like, so that we can integrate that into your web process or your website? Just simply by asking that question, they walked me through the sales process for me to start to articulate at least the best way for them to understand their sales process is. I asked them what their best sales experience was and what their worst sales experience was. And I took their best sales experience and say, okay, so if we want to model this and we want to try to replicate this, what are the steps? Who are the people that were involved? And let's just map that out. And that's how I started. So we mapped out the best sales experience for that division, and we built a profile around that experience, and we just tried to model that. And then every single time we did a review once a year, we'd go back and look at it. Over time, as the company expanded, we started to take on other kinds of great experiences. So feature films, what was the greatest experiences in B2B sales for that particular space? Okay, great. Let's map that out. And then that became that sales process. And so we just did that and slowly expanded with each division as the company grew. And for us, that was, at least for me, as a beginner in this space, it was a really super sophisticated way for me to just open that conversation and allow for them to really identify, okay, here's how I would like for my sales process to look like. Here's who my ideal sales process or my ideal partner is. We use that as a model. But that was just my experience.
Beautiful one.
Mm-hmm.
Formosa is a really good B2B case study because all of the sales were to other professionals. So it's like a B2B panopticon. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked Keone, Rancy's asking about data matching and about translation and how to understand it. I wanted to invite anybody who's used data matching, but I wanted to just share the origin of that exercise. And can you mute Keone? I'm hearing myself in both through your mic and through my mic. And here's what I'll say real briefly, Rancy, and I'm not sure if this is answering your question, so maybe I should clarify. But for me, something that I discovered through the people that I worked with and coached, Mary is a good person and a good example. But Barrett Morse, who designed the data matching exercise, what we were trying to solve for was specifically how close could we get to the client has this need, and then your customer has this need, and then you have this goal. So we have the goal of growing revenue, and the customer has the need to, and let's just talk about the system, to grow their business, right? So we want to grow our business and they want to grow their business. So whatever we deliver has to have the utmost fidelity in that. So what helps that client grow your business? So in the case scenario of Core and what we're doing here, this whole forum is a fidelity forum. If you're using Core, what we're delivering here is answers to questions as to how you can execute it so that you can do a better job at your projects and you can grow your business and you can get bigger clients and you can be more strategic, all those kind of things that happen from this experience. So the lesson is that the more you can say, what do you need? And it's almost like, what do you get and what do you give, right? Get and give, get and give. You give value and the opportunity for somebody to grow their business, you get revenue from them because they'll support you financially, right? So the data matching is simply an exercise to get those two things aligned across the three users and across the primary needs. So on one side, you have all of the business's goals to grow. If one of those business goals, it's the number one, let's say in awareness, is increase social media following, then, and what your second customer or what second profile needs is examples of how to live a more mindful and healthy life in their routines, etc., right? Then in the intersection of social media and the customer and let's say the client is a personal care product like everyone. So in the intersection between, we need to grow our social media channel, we need to have more followers and more numbers there, and that person needs to have a better wellness routine. The answer to that, if you brainstorm it, is, oh, we need to do Instagram posts with, how to manage your routine, a checklist, like 9 a.m. do this, 10 p.m. do this, etc. Whatever that morning routine is. That solution is a direct reflection of what the user needs in the user profile and what your business objective is. And that's what that exercise is. It's just basically to make you mindful to doing things in high fidelity. You're not just doing a social media campaign with some images of the product, which is what everyone does. You're providing direct, tangible value to your user because you're like defining that. That's fidelity. So that's how that exercise, the goal of that exercise is. And now you have to then craft that solution, right? What's the copy? Where do you resource, the wellness techniques? Do you have an expert, etc.? Was that helpful in terms of data matching for anyone?
Yes.
I really like just how you specifically communicated. You're like, we're trying to get the closest as specifically possible to aligning the business needs and the customer needs. I just think that's an awesome way to communicate even that to a client.
Yeah, Jose, I think you did a really great job describing what data matching is. Although describing it and doing it in real life
it's hard.
It's hard as hell. So, if I'm going to cut anything from core, it ends up being data matching mostly, especially if I'm limited on time. But I have gotten feedback before from clients that they found that activity to be very valuable. And I found that doing data matching and then doing your customer journeys helps create a more robust customer narrative when you get to that step. But that being said, you can overdo it with data matching. And I've started to learn not to push too much. If the client is having a hard time, coming up with ideas or whatever, I just try not to push it too much. But it does take some time and silence for them to think about it. But that being said too, it doesn't have to be this huge grand idea. Like I just pulled up last year's core that I did for the organization that I did core again this year. And we did data matching last year, but not this year. And we came up with some ideas that were really basic. Like, they wanted branded sponsorships, and one of the customer needs was in-depth connection. So it's like, what can we do to create in-depth connection through branded sponsorships? And we came up with simple things like target local sponsors. You know, it's just small details like that that are still specific and can be helpful, but that doesn't have to be like this grandiose idea.
Yeah, Cassie, you know, I just want to say that I think you're taking the right approach, and you just dive into it and you kind of build your familiarity. You know, Jose said this is a pro level skill, and I think that the experience with this really comes from the familiarity with the different kinds of like macro and micro, you know, items of execution that happen in that space, right? And the more that you're familiar with it over time, the more that you can reference those things. One of the things that I personally did to really reinforce my expertise in these exercises is I would take these exercises and I would do them on established brands. I would do them on campaigns that I already know existed. And I would look at them and, you know, in the reverse architecture of it, I would be like, okay, here is an opportunity that they missed. Or, they made this decision, but this was completely out of alignment with their values. This may be why this campaign didn't do so well. And now it's just this natural thing that I do. Whenever I see a commercial, I sort of kind of go through core in my head. I'm already thinking about who are the audiences? What are the attributes, right? What were the business objectives of these brands? But when you get into that familiarity with being able to dissect, you know, like branding in that space, then you really start to see the building blocks of how businesses are built, how relationships are built, and how that creative expression happens authentically. And it's a practice, right? I've been doing core for several years now, so for me, it's sort of already natural, and I was already in that mindset, you know, coming from anthropology background. But it just takes time. But Pape, what's up, bro?
Oh, can I add one last thing?
Oh, please.
From a practical perspective, when I'm deciding like should we do data matching or not, I like to look at each individual and see like what type of thinker they are. Because like if they're highly creative, this is going to be like something they'll probably embrace. If they're very analytical and, you know, very structured, they might not like this because it's too open and free.
Yeah, their brains will explode.
Yes, I've gotten the feedback before, like, aren't we overdoing this? Like, I think we're overthinking this. And it's like, okay, just go with it. But like another thing that I'm looking for if I'm going to introduce data matching is, are they the type of person that's like, let's give it the good old try? Like, why not? Let's see what happens. If they are, then go for it. It could be really valuable for them. But I think they just have to be in the right open-minded mindset for it. Okay, I'm done.
No, that's
Thank
a great
you,
point,
Cassie. That was a very good tip. And also don't call it data matching. We're going to change the name for the next version. Call it solutions architecture, which is what it is actually.
Yeah. Pape, ¿qué pasó?
Yes, hello everyone. Yeah, for me, two things that I got from what Jose and Keone were saying is that the important thing of doing is that you can find those overlapping, the intersections. And as Jose said, for example, in my case with Psychotropic Apparel, one of my customers is an artist, and the other is just a young person that is looking for a purpose, is looking for inspiration. So that need of inspiration, and for the artist, the need was to share their story. So what I did was I opened a questionnaire, a formulary for finding the stories of this artist, and then share it on social media as the inspiration for the other person that is looking for new artists, new musicians, photographers, or new people that are doing stuff. And that's where I connected, like where I made the intersection. And also another thing that I did before creating the website was doing a reverse engineering of another web page, understanding like how did they come up with this idea through a customer need, and then also understanding my needs as an artist and as an entrepreneur, that it's hard to organize content. So for me, the biggest container for the brand is the website. And that's where I decided, like, okay, if I'm going to focus on awareness, that is my website, and it also has these revenue objectives, But if I want to create like my social media, what I will start doing is like focusing on my blog, and I choose like 3 needs, and there I do my data matching. So if I need inspiration, they need to grow their business. So I have my business partner that is really good with numbers. He's really good reading and summarizing. So he's doing like summaries and writing for the blog. And then what we plan to do is take that, as we already have the copy, we already have the idea, and we then translate that into social media. So what I do is that I treat the web page as like the biggest container of the brand, and that's where I start like recycling. And for us, we're now to the point where we want to take this into email marketing, you know? So we already have the blog. What we do is recycle all of this. And what happens is you don't have to fix every single revenue awareness or effectiveness needs at like in one single moment. It just depends on how big your team is. But I guess you can start like, just focus on 1 or 2, and then you start adding, because the infinite game, like you will have to create content forever until your brand dies or something happens, you know? So just take it easy and be patient.
Yeah. That was awesome, Pape. Thank you so much for sharing, man. You've become a pro so quickly, man. Appreciate you, brother. So, we've got a few minutes left and we need to do the outros. Couple of things I just want to mention. So in the chat, you know, there's a lot of really positive feedback when I talked about the way that I deconstruct brands using core. And the question was, would you guys like it if, you know, we did a session where I would like bring a brand on and we would just break it down. You know, we'd go through the attributes, we could go through the demographics, go through the business priorities. We can do some of the data matching exercises, so we can actually reverse engineer and see how these exercises work backwards. They work just the same and probably can give a lot of insight to you guys. So I'm going to work on that. But before we go, we do want to do the outros. We've already done the intros, and connect on the social. So let's do that, and then, you know, we'll keep the floor open if anybody wants to hang and chat afterwards. So first and foremost, for everybody that's in the community here, wherever you are in social, drop it into the chat so that we can all connect. You know, we want to make sure that we support wherever you guys are at, whatever you guys are working on, whether it's LinkedIn, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, you know, you're on Twitter Reels, wherever you at, drop them into the link so that we can connect. So that's one. And then the next thing is, you know, we've got a lot of new attendees. And so let's talk a little bit about where we're at and what you can find in this community. So I'm going to just shift a little bit and we're going to get into this, all right? So normally we do the upload, and we're going to end the upload, which is the one valuable thing that we got from today's broadcast at the end. We're going to do our outro real quick and just give you a heads up. So we do have this accelerator program that we are launching. I sent out an email yesterday with some of you guys so that you guys can sign up. The accelerator program is a place where you're going to be able to find all of the resources behind all of the work that we're done. But we're also going to give you guys sort of these guided lessons on some of the 3 basic foundations for you to build your brand and for you to build your agency. We're starting with our first cohort, which is going on this summer. And the very first circle that we're starting with, which
I think we lost Keone.
We did. It's okay. So I will give an overview of the Accelerator. So the first cohort is going to be creating their story, and it's something that we've been talking about today. Meaning, you know, we talked about authenticity and social media, and that's part of the steps that we're taking in the Accelerator of creating your past and rewriting that with a new story of your superhero. The present, which is core, and the reality of what you're building now, you know, who are your customers, what are your business goals, and also then the future, you know, putting that into execution, basically. How do you execute with others in a circle and collaborate? Our intention is really to be able to have that for everyone, in addition to having all the resources needed of examples similar to the questions that we've asked here. You know, where do we find examples of briefs? Where do we find examples of how other people have done it? So it's really an intimate community of practice to grow. So, you know, first and foremost is to reset the story and understand that everything is how you tell it. Second, to not rewrite the stories, but really to write the stories of the past, present, and the future through the frameworks that we're using here to do it ourselves, but that we've all been using IE Core for many years with our clients. And then the third is really to step onto the stage, you know, and direct the game itself. You know, there's a difference between having, I think, you know, I noticed this in the community a lot, where you're waiting to step into it. And I've been waiting to step into my leadership. Let me give Keone access. And it's really, I'm going to reframe the whole idea of this is an experiment to this is it. You know, the experiment is life. The experiment is doing it together in community inside the Accelerator, having co-working hours during the week where anyone can just drop in. I was joking with my trainer yesterday, I'm just gonna put the camera on and broadcast on Zoom my workouts or whatever. It was being funny, but how do we build a global community that comes together to practice and to grow in the way that we've been doing here for the last year? So if you've ever attended one of these sessions, if you've ever seen the vibe, if you've seen what Aude called FM, you know, style of Keone and of us delivering, that's really what we're doing in the Accelerator, and continuing to do it in much closer proximity. Instead of using Facebook or, you know, other platforms, we're doing it on Circle.so. And the last thing I'll say is that one of the things that I really want to encourage is that we ourselves become the experts. I'm very, Keone and I and Mary are all interested in elevating each other together as we're doing it, so that it's not just me or Keone or it's answering questions. We all have the knowledge together. So like we can really share that knowledge and those issues. So there'll be a core group or a core circle where you can find, think of it as a game lobby, where you can find someone to do core with every year, or however often you're doing it on yourself, or to answer questions for you. So it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm really excited about it. So, and really proud about it. Okay. Yeah. So that's that. Keone's going to join me over here. I'm going to change my my mic to the MacBook Pro, and I'm gonna do the outro and the music. Let me get my ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. That's a cool, let's do what Papa did last week, where it's like we're like luckily we have a playlist here, and then I will share portion of the screen. Yeah, let me do that. Just to do the last part here. Boom, portion of the screen, share sounds, make sure it's not too loud. And if you need to go, you can go. Say goodbye, and we'll see you guys. Ooh, super loud. Holy shit, that was loud. Then share portion of the screen. Boom.
Did Keone said he emailed folks already, or?
You guys should be able to see my screen now. Yeah.
Do they hear me? No.
Then the last thing, if you're not part of, you've seen the link a few times, if you're not part of the Core Tribe on Facebook, you'll see a lot of information there. We love it when you share on social media. It's really amazing. What did you get out of today? Of course, you know, Core Chorus Magic for those of you who haven't gotten the kit from the future. You can find out more information there. Like or subscribe if you're watching this on Facebook, and we're the System. Yay. That's the
Jose,
and
Bobby
now the
said
upload. So the upload basically is let's go around popcorn style. Whoever wants to start, what's one thing they got out of today that was valuable and that they can take away and start using right away?
Jose, before that, Bobby had a question regarding the Accelerator program. Bobby, can you ask again?
Share.
Yeah, my question was, Keone said that, did I misunderstand him? Did he said that he already emailed folks about it, or?
MacBook Pro speakers.
I think he's working on it manually, but let me know and we'll reach out. I'll help you out, Bobby. Got you, fam.
A second, we can't hear. Let me borrow the headphones real quick.
So while we're waiting for that, maybe for the upload, if you can drop it on the chat, or if you can raise your hand. What was one valuable thing you got from today's broadcast?
Let me see, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Can you hear the music? Probably not.
A little bit.
Okay.
You can.
All right. Now we're okay. Cool. So one thing that, there we go. One thing that you got out of today's broadcast. Raphael, go first.
Hi, how you doing, Raphael? The one thing I got is language. You know, you described data matching in such a simplified way, and that's like the most powerful thing I got out of the whole core session today was how to present it with words that actually reach the audience. That's all I think. Thank you.
Beautiful. Terrence and Rancy.
Yo, man, first of all, thanks for doing this. This is my first session with you guys. Very excited to learn more and hear from the community. I love all the energy. I think the most potent thing for me was, believe it or not, Jose, when you talked through the user, like B2B user profiles, I think it was like the manager, VP, and CEO. That was super helpful for me as I'm getting ready to do my personal core and like thinking through how my business is going to serve other businesses. And I've kind of just stumbled into the B2B space. So I think this is going to help me be more intentional about who I can help with my content, my services, et cetera, starting from that managerial standpoint on upward. So yeah, thank you guys for doing this. I seriously feel really, really good about this community. I'm sitting in a room by myself. Y'all know entrepreneurship can be very lonely. So I just love that I found this community and I can't wait to explore more. I'm going to shut up now. Y'all have a great day.
No, don't shut up.
Don't shut up. Unmute yourself, Terrence. Welcome, brother. And it's good to have you here. So
thank you.
It's amazing. Rancy.
Yeah, I forgot his name, but just the thing that was said about asking the client, what do you expect from this? And then throughout just your interaction with them, continually asking, okay, am I matching this? Or am I hitting the mark on this? How are we doing? And being okay if you're not, and just seeing it as good communication whenever they clarify. And so I would say that, and then also just the idea of talking to the client about, hey, it's good to do all of this stuff every year. And I've done a lot of sales work, and so I think that's starting to just bridge the gap between other experience I've had.
Yeah, you got a little cut off, but we got that. You know, the doing sales work and understanding how core works
to create recurring clients. So,
yeah, thank you for sharing, Nancy.
So it's really awesome, helpful stuff. So,
thank you for sharing. It's good to have you here. Anybody else? One last person. Otame, how was that? Did you get answers to your questions? And then we have to fix the matrix. Yeah, the matrix is really broken today. But that's okay. We continue onwards. One last person. If not, like we'll do our our dismount here and we can chat and say hello to everybody.
I have a question. You said something about, you said that don't call the exercise that I mentioned. You said another name. What was it again?
Solutions architecture.
Love that. Thank you.
It's a precursor to doing a solutions architecture because you're actually outlining all the solutions based on the needs and based on the priorities. And then you can kind of go into how do you deliver that, which is something that I want us to work more on sharing with you as a team, meaning like, here's how we're doing the system. And then we want to share it with you, like how we're building the business using the same tools, right? So we're not building the system, but we do also use other frameworks, and then that's how we do it. But if you're gonna, in the accelerator, we'll really show more, and we'll be more transparent as to how we're doing it. And yes, it's like Terrence said, it's, you know, difficult to do it sometimes when you're alone, and it's good to have community. So we're done, we're complete. And I know we had some technical issues back and forth, but this part of the session is just freestyle. Whoever wants to speak, share, and we'll be here for a few minutes and get back to work, to the day. A little bit of smooth tunes. Thank you everybody for being here. We're not doing broadcast this Friday, but next week we'll have, we'll be back to having sign therapy on Friday, and Monday is Clubhouse. So next week we have a full schedule. June, it's gonna be lit. Thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you, y'all. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We're dropping too much knowledge out here. Powerful.
Matrix is exploding.
Also, where's Pape? Are you gonna dance for us today too?
No, do not set those expectations. Pape doesn't have to dance every week. We can all dance with the beautiful backgrounds from Adriana. Thank you, Adriana.
Yes.
It's good to see you, Jamaikito, Eduardo. It's good to see you, Rafael. It's good to see you, Arsene J. Dexter, we only saw the tip of your head today. What's going on, brother? How you doing? Sergio, always amazing to see you here. Bobby, thank you for your expertise and holding space for the Woo side, and you know, Cassie, just you sharing, it's been amazing. We are the system, meaning we together, it's like there's no, we are individuals and we're all unique, but collectively and acting as a tribe or as a group makes us more powerful, knowing that together we have much more power than separate. That's really at the end of the day.
Woo side.
Woo side.
Yeah. Hey, Jose, can you talk about the pricing? I don't think you guys talked about that for the new folks.
Yeah, it's 100.
So
how much is it?
It is 125 monthly. If you sign up for the year, it will be 1,300. Some of you have reached out with some financial hardship, so we put together a plan just for you guys. And if that is still too expensive, reach out for us, and we have, you know, some work study exchanges that we're exploring. But you know, the key is, you know, we don't want anybody left behind. But we do want to make sure that we're getting you to a point where you guys are able to sustain yourself financially. You know, the pricing is such that, you know, I would love for you guys to be members of this community, you know, throughout your careers, and all the different aspects and permutations as you learn different skill sets, as you evolve, you know, maybe from, you know, amateur to you know, professional to skilled to mentorship. This community, you know, is more than just strategy, clearly, and I think we have something special here. So that's why it's priced in the way that it is, and that's why we have the opportunities to make sure that nobody's left behind.
Yeah. So no matter whether you can or you can't, it doesn't matter. Just email Keone and we'll make sure that we want to make sure that's for this first cohort. So think of this as a startup. Think of it as the community that we're building are the first users. They're the ones that are going to be testing how we're doing it. And you're going to get a lot more value because you're one of the early people than if you're, well, obviously everyone will get value. Let me not say that, but you'll get the value that we're really making it a point to build it with you. And it's a combination of the year that we've been doing this since the pandemic, in the middle of the pandemic. And like Keone said, you know, don't let that stop you. Email him at Keone at the Systm we'll handle it, and let's get going. Let's get working together to build your careers, to build your practices. And in parallel, as an intention, is really, we know we need to do the work collectively to grow and to gain confidence and to change our mindsets. And that's something that's for me very important. And you witnessed us do it in these gatherings, that by telling our own stories, by reframing, the challenges of the past, and really defining the vision for your future, it's easier to propel ourselves forward. The secret ingredient at the end is the community. It's the, Cassie sharing. It's the sessions that, Patricia and her crew have been hosting. It's Aurelio and, Pape and Roxana doing a podcast and sharing their stories. So really, really powerful, and it really fuels us to do what we're doing. So don't hesitate, regardless of where the financial situation is. It's very common for us to know that when you're there, and we are able to get you there. I told this to Mauricio yesterday. The objective is to get you to where you don't need us anymore, and you're like a mentor now, and you're like, thank you very much. So
Cassie, I did send out some emails. I'll check back and make sure that you're on those emails, so that we can make sure that you get you situated with it. And I do want to read off a couple of these, because they're really powerful. Cassie in particular, her biggest value for her today was connection. She said she was really feeling disconnected with her purpose and what to do after some time off and away from work for the U.S. holiday weekend, and this really helped her ground. And that was awesome. Thank you. Iwana, she says it's the aspirational user, and you can use it to validate the user profiles later based on true facts. Absolutely. We have Othman. His takeaway was Jose's explanation of the approach in using core for execution and directions for stylescapes. So yeah, that was really powerful stuff. And so, I wanted to make sure we got at least those takeaways in before we ended today's session. So yeah, you guys, thank you so much. There's a couple comments. Cassie, she saw me on Shaw's of Sunset, and that's a reality show that's based out here in Los Angeles. And I was doing brand strategy for a bunch of cannabis companies, and one of the reality television stars wanted to start her own cannabis company. So guess who they had come on down and give her a little bit of core brand strategy? Yours truly, Wooside represent. It was a lot of fun. She is definitely one of my wildest and zaniest clients. But maybe we'll talk about that in another session. We should do like a behind the scenes BTS crazy client stories.
Oh my God. That'd be a good TikTok channel.
But yeah, guys, and apologies for the technical difficulties. My computer's been acting up recently, but we're still rocking with you, and we're here for y'all. So it's 1:00, y'all. Y'all have an incredible day. Stay blessed. Y'all are powerful. We believe in you, and you guys can create anything that you put your minds to. Take care, y'all. Peace.